WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We Should Know is on the air. I'm JW Simmons, your host. We're coming to you on Star Communications TV, Channel 16, WCLN Radio simulcast on Tuesdays at 2:30 with replays at 7 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday. We're talking education today and continuing discussion before school opening with the superintendents and Superintendent of Clinton City Schools, Dr. Wesley Johnson. Dr. Johnson, thank you for being our guest again. You are, should I say, a regular on the show.
Probably so, but I enjoy it, Mr. JW.
Absolutely. When you talk about education, the subject matter is so deep and so broad, it's hard to kind of zero in on one specific thing. And one of the things I thought I would start with is today is the vision statement for Clinton City Schools. And it simply says, by 2026, Clinton City Schools will be the premier learning community in the Southeast, improving the world one dark horse at a time. I thought that was an interesting vision statement, and I thought it was worth visiting, particularly considering that in 2018, I think it was, you've been now engaged from the county. You'll soon have 4 years in as superintendent with the city. You've literally walked through various stations from being a teacher to assistant principal to assistant superintendent, holding multiple positions, and now superintendent of Clinton City Schools. When you think about that vision statement, still valid, or do we need to tweak it?
Oh, I think it's very valid. We just walked through a very long process of developing a strategic plan. And with the strategic plan, I didn't want that to be the Wesley Johnson plan. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of input. And when I say input, it was input from the administrative level. It was input from the teacher level. And so we would work with our administrators. We would get them to go back to their schools to address those conversations with their teachers in like school improvement meetings and in faculty meetings. And then they would come back up to my level, and then we would fine tune it again and send it back down to them. So the vision statement actually came from a collaboration with my offices, the school level individuals, and also our teachers and students, and got back to us, and that's what we decided with the one dark horse at a time. Actually, I'm thinking most likely we have themes every year. Our theme last year was making the main thing the main thing. Mm-hmm. The theme before that was whatever it takes. This year, I'm strongly considering, not definite yet, but I'm strongly considering it to be one dark horse. I just think that we need a time of unity. You know, when we live in such a divided world and a divided, not necessarily community, but a divided world, when you can talk about unity and unifying, and we can one of the things that I really like about Clinton is that as far as I know, we're the only school system that has the dark horse as the motto. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we can be unified on that and unified toward the vision of becoming the premier learning institution in the Southeast, by 2026. Got a lot to do, but like you said, since 2018, with the works of many individuals, we've come a long way, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that work.
When you look at the complexity of education, and you think about your governance body, your local governance body, you have that to orchestrate. You also look on the state level at a whole nother, I'll call protocol, procedure, policy, governance body. And then you have that larger capacity, which is what I look at, and I look at it as kind of the expectations, and that's the parents and the community, and why did this happen to my kid body. How do you balance all those, and how do you plug it in where it fits?
Those are good questions. I think more than anything, I try to stay attuned to the community. As you noted in your prelogue to our conversation, I've been a part of this community now, if you can believe this, my 25th year.
Yeah.
And I've never left Sampson County. You have a lot of superintendents that may be new to that area and they have to learn that area very quickly. Well, I've been blessed that I've been a part of this community, Sampson County, Clinton, for 25 years. And so when you've seen a lot of the changes that have transpired in our community, and you've seen demographic shifts, and you've seen shifts in our economy, I think we have to stay focused on what's best for, we often say this, what's best for students, but not what's best for students, what's best for our students, what's best for the students of Clinton City Schools. Clinton City Schools has a great long tradition of putting forth very talented individuals. As I learn more about this community, I was just at a meeting, at an executive director's meeting for the YMCA. I was thinking about, as I was sitting beside people to my right and to my left, that their children have gone through our system and are now doctors and lawyers and veterinarians. I think about that often, and I want to continue that rich tradition of making sure that Clinton is a premier learning institution.
I'm glad you mentioned YMCA and Jared Barrier. We did a couple of shows with Jared, and one of the things that struck me as we were doing that, how great it was going to add to the youth of the community. Kind of speak to that issue a little bit. What does YMCA mean to the school system in the city of Clinton?
Well, that's, I don't even know if I can put that in context. I think I'll answer that as a former physical education teacher. And so the thoughts of health and wellness, when I think of a person, I really do believe that a person is soul, mind, and body. And if I can educate your mind, but if I don't educate your body and your soul, then I've not really educated you to your full extent. And so when I think about the why and what and I just found out some of this in my meeting, but what their principles and foundations are all about that. The mind, soul, and body. But to have an organization where they can work in tandem with us to promote health needs and spiritual needs. And I think that's very important. We already have a great, relationship with our churches and, different denominations around this area, but to have a why that kind of brings it all together and to promote that in our youth and amongst our youth, and to do that with equity and making sure that all students have available programs, and it's not just tailored to a certain group, I think is going to be foundational and very important for us as we move forward here in Clinton.
I think I agree, and I think it's an exceptional way to open that door to inclusivity in the city of Clinton and also in this area, the Young Men's Christian Association. And I like the old name that, I know they're transitioning to the Y, but to me that has weight, that has something that's got some concrete to it.
Absolutely.
Let's move on with this conversation, and I want to visit, and hopefully some of these things will allow you to kind of help us understand more about education from your perspective. And also, again, as we talked prior to coming on the air, I want folks to look at this show as a conversation with you talking to the parents, to the teachers, to the folks that work at the school, and to the students. And I'll start with one of the core values of Clinton City Schools. It says all students reach their highest potential in an environment that is safe, inviting, and accepting of diversity. All of those sound simple, but quite frankly, in my opinion, some of those are probably some of the most treacherous areas that we're facing now in our society.
I agree. And it really depends on, again, that's why I think you have to remain focused on your community. When you start getting outside of your community, and you have to, because there are state policies that you talked about, and even bigger federal policies, but you have to use and you have to define all those terms that you noted as to what is the local context of those terms. And I think that that's very important when you think about Clinton City Schools, that we're going to put all those terms first in the local context, because we know what our community, we know the community we're serving. And so we are going to have inclusiveness, and we are going to do all those things that you talked about, but within a community context and not necessarily a state or national context. And I think that's a big difference.
Does Clinton City Schools have capacity concerns? And I say that in the sense, in hearing conversations here and there are a lot of folks say, I want to get my kids in Clinton City Schools. Is there a point in time that if you do a good job, if you have a good school district, and you're turning out quality people that have not only perspective but innovation and vision, does the door to the entrance side get too crowded?
It hasn't yet. I mean, we are very level. Our population, our enrollment has remained relatively fixed, is probably a good word. Definitely since I've been here, and even back into history, looking back even 6, 8, 10 years before that. And the projections seem to appear that it's going to stay fixed. But you're right, we do have members of other communities. We have students from several different, not only LEAs, but really several different counties. Mm-hmm. We do ask that outside of county students pay what our county commissioners give us as as a county level, so that we can be equally funded from people coming outside of Clinton City as students are inside of Clinton City.
I want to kind of segue softly to a break here, but when we come back, I want to pick up on that word that you just used, the 4-letter word a lot of people are familiar with. It's called cost. There's a cost usually to everything, and I want to kind of break the ice with that and looking at it in the sense of, what does an education cost now comparative to what it cost maybe a year, 5 years, 10 years ago? Looking forward, will that same education cost more? But before we get into that, I want people to be thinking about defining what cost is, because there's multiple levels of that. Kind of touch on that if it's okay when we come back from the next break. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Dr. Wesley Johnson, Clinton City Schools Superintendent, also experienced in Sampson County Schools. Things you need to know. Call a friend. We'll be back in a moment.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. Well, thank you for being with us. You may be listening to us today on WCLN Radio. You may be watching us on Star Communications TV Channel 16. Either way, we're having a lively conversation with the Superintendent of Clinton City Schools, Dr. Wesley Johnson. Dr. Johnson, one of the things that happens on this show quite often is that when we go on break, myself and the guest, we continue to talk, and certainly you're a person that's been on here a number of times, and I always enjoy having fluid conversations with you. And so we were exploring this kind of idea of education and what the dynamic of cost of education is. And I wanted to kind of continue that conversation, because when I look at it from a historical perspective, education did cost, and as we look at the state budget and local budgets, education takes up the overwhelming chunk of all of those budgets. But when we think about the cost from an individuality point of view, from a family point of view, from a community point of view, what are we really talking about, and what different levels of cost are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think, for as much as we can do, we've done a great job of ensuring that our kids get a a good education. We've done a lot of good things here in Clinton City with watching our finances very well. To be quite honest, the ESSER money has dramatically helped. Without that, I don't know that we would have been able to be at the place we are currently with our cash reserves and all that, because it's really been quite helpful as the supply chain issues have occurred and as the economy has shifted and adjusted, and now we've got interest rates going up to try to balance inflation. So all that's been interesting, because of course it costs more in 2022 to run a school system than it did even in 21, and it costs more than it probably maybe even has doubled in the last several years. I was thinking about that as we were talking, actually. I don't know how long I've been following the numbers, probably since I've been in the central office, but and I want to make sure that I say this. Our county commissioners have done a great job of getting more and more and more funding to our public schools. I can think at one time when, not too many years ago, we were somewhere around $1,300 per student. But I can remember a few years ago when I was looking through those magazines and thumbing through them to see in Sampson County at one of the bottom numbers there across the state, and I want to say Mr. JW was somewhere around 700 or 750. Now again, that wasn't terribly long ago. But so you put that in context of the question that you're asking me, and now we're funding at $1,300 per child, still relatively low to the rest of the state, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
And what we're really talking about here is something that's referred to as the FTE, the full-time equivalency, which is the payout, and that's a collective of both state, local, and in some cases federal money.
Correct. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes that's so often misunderstood by our constituents. They don't understand that we just recently interviewed for a finance manager, Charlene Jones. Absolutely love her. She's going to move on into retirement. And so we were looking for finance, and we had several individuals with all kinds of degrees behind their name, but when you've not done school finance, you don't understand what you're talking about, which are called program codes. And the first number in each program code tells you if it's local dollars, or if it's state dollars, or if it's federal dollars. And then all of those different codes, none of them can be shared. You can't move money from local to state to federal. They have to remain within those program codes.
Because they're allocated for that.
Absolutely. And then there's certain, you used the word a while ago, policies or even procedures that determine what those monies can be spent on. And so you have to ensure that those monies stay in those certain pots. And school finance is extremely, extremely complex. And to be quite honest with you, it's taxing.
Yeah, it's challenging to say the least.
Absolutely.
So when we look at that perspective of cost, not only from the sense of categorization and allocation of funds, but the accountability of those funds becomes dramatically imperative, should I say? Because if you have an account that and maybe you had a grant, for $1 million for something, which is wonderful. But at the end of the cycle, at the end of the certain period, there's an expectation that amount of money has been spent on that particular, whatever it is, whether it's how to blow up basketballs or whatever.
Right.
But there's an understanding, I think, that you have, but maybe the majority of the public doesn't see, and they would have no reason to see. But you have to articulate in some way that to your board and also to the funding entity.
Right. Just one comes to mind, and I'm thinking about it. It's ESSER money. So initially federal, that came down to the state level, and the state distributes them. We've got one pot of money that we're really looking at. It's actually due in a few days. It's only for 4th through 8th grade after school math interventions. And so you've got this pot of money, I'll tell you, $69,000, that we've got to figure out how to best spend that $69,000 on 4th through 8th grade math interventions. And so when I say school finance being complex, you get these pots of money, And then we've not even talked about, you mentioned it, allotments.
Yes, exactly.
Before I came up here earlier, I was talking to my finance director, Charlene. How many teacher positions did we lose this school year? Because we just got allotments yesterday. 0.07. What is 0.07 of a teacher?
It's measured in financial terms and not in human being terms.
Right. So you don't, and this is a big difference that Dr. Gooden, you mentioned him and I, we've discussed in Pennsylvania, they send down money allotments. So he would get $150 million. Run your school. We don't do that. A lot of times we get allotments or we get dollars, and then dollars are tied to specific terms. Your custodians and your substitutes have to come out of this allotment. Your instructional assistants have to come out of this allotment. And so balancing all that can be difficult. But the good news is, again, as I said earlier, the board, our teachers, our parents have all done a great job of chipping in and cutting edges and corners, and we've done a really good job of getting Clinton City Schools back to where it needed to be and ensuring that we have a long history, because things such as, we've not even got into this, how much a roof costs.
Absolutely.
And when you've got aging facilities like we do in Clinton City Schools, I'll give you an example. The roof at Sampson Middle School, over $3 million. And so you've got to be able to tackle those. You mentioned grants, and we've done a great job. Mr. John Lowe and others in my department of applying for grants. We recently got a grant, needs-based capital fund from North Carolina, almost $900,000. We received $898,000 that's going to go to providing some of these roofs at LCK Butler Avenue. We've got another grant, school violence prevention grant, that's going to upgrade, or already has upgraded, all of our cameras to 4K cameras that were 12, 14 years old. Just think about how much your iPhone has changed in that amount of time. How our old cameras, you couldn't even make out who these students are. Now they're in 4K. And so we've done a lot of grant writing to ensure that we can get programs and ensure that our kids are safe, and going back to all those strategic planning core goals that you mentioned, very, very important, I believe.
I think the planning part is critically important, and then I look at it from the sense of the broad base of student population you have to serve, and that's from your exceptional children's programs to your gifted and talented programs, and it's hard when we use that word equity, which is now the big buzzword. It's hard to say, well, everybody is equitable, because the dynamic of their capacity is completely beyond understanding unless they sit where you sit.
Right. Again, and you're mentioning some really key things there, but being a public school system, you deal with every type of child. And so you deal with, as you noted, the AIG child, you deal with your EC students, you deal with students with social emotional needs, you deal with students with, traditional needs, and it takes different monies to educate all of those children. And so, we do our best to give everybody an equitable education. You use that term. I think that's very important. But, it has to be balanced around, again, the local, broader context as well.
The dynamic of what we're talking about is something I want to continue into our next segment, and we're coming up shortly here, but I want to take that thought and move it to the idea of the health idea, the idea of safety, the idea of discipline, the idea of what you as superintendent, through your body of teachers and others, could say to parents. Here's what we would expect when this school year opens, 2022. Here's what we would like to expect of you when your child comes. Now, that's a bold and hard kind of thing to say, but at the end of the day, there is a line, I think, in just our discussion here, that seems to be obvious, and that's one of what the parents are expected to bring to you, and what you have agreed and laid out in all the literature that you're willing to do. And I'd like to move to that discussion if that works for you.
Absolutely.
I just think it's critical to the whole education process. If we could kind of transcend that to some degree, I think it would be not only helpful for that gifted and talented child or that child that has certain challenges, it would be great for all of it. So let's consider that coming back.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, now call a friend, stay tuned. We're talking about education with a person that's been through multiple levels of education right here in Sampson County and is now the superintendent of the Clinton City Schools, but understands the dynamics of Sampson County. And maybe it'll help us understand better what he and its instructional folks and folks that work at Clinton City Schools face each and every day. Stay tuned, call a friend. We Should Know. We'll be back in a moment.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its Doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. Again, we're talking education today. The name of the show is We Should Know. I'm JW Simmons, your host. Our guest is Dr. Wesley Johnson, Superintendent of Clinton City Schools. Dr. Johnson, we went off the air, and of course, we have these lively conversations during the break time. One of the things that struck both of us as we were talking about a lot of the issues and things we're facing and the concerns is this ability to be able to connect and some way create this symbiotic understanding from not only the school system, from the superintendent to the educators, to the teachers, but also to the parents and to the children that are in the homes and places where they live. Because a lot of what happens in that environment affects and impacts their classroom experience. What is it that parents need to kind of understand when we think of that being prepared to go to school? It's 2022, going back to school. I got a grandchild that told me the other day she was looking forward to going back to school. She was so excited, and that made me feel so good. But there probably are children that are going, I don't know whether I want to go back to school or not. What is the people that's in charge of those home environments? What are some of the things they need to know that would help educators better do what they are trained to do?
That's good. I'm going to start, Mr. JW, with, I would say, to ignore the rhetoric. So often in our community, not in our community necessarily, but in the world, we hear about public education this, public education that, and there are all these theories that are getting thrust on our kids. That's not the local context of public education. We're here as partners with our parents to, for me, I've always seen education as the great equalizer. You're talking to a first-generation college student that is now superintendent. My parents didn't go to college, neither one of them. And so when you think about first-generation college students, which many of our parents are, and now we're trying, and we want the best for our kids. We want the best for your kids too. Clinton City Schools wants the best for your kids. So the way I see our, you used the word, I think you said symbiotic.
Yep.
I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I think we're here working together, working with one another. We're not against you or we're not against your child. We want what's best for your child. And so as you said and as you stated, in some context, we have to, the word is loco parentis. When you're with us, we are acting as your parent, and I take that very seriously. I've got 3 in Clinton City Schools myself. My wife teaches in Clinton City Schools, and I've got my 3 children that attend. I promise you, we're not going to treat your child any different than I'm going to treat my own 3 children. And so there is a standard that we're trying to set. There is expectations, and we're going to make sure that all of our kids follow those expectations and live up to those expectations, because in the end, we want what's best for that child.
To talk about some of those expectations, and I'm so glad you pointed out that not only your background in education, but you're an all-in education guy. I mean, you just laid out your whole family is in education one way or the other. But what are some of those expectations that not only you set for your family, but expectations that you know will work because you've tried it, that maybe would help somebody listening or watching this show coming up here the last of August? I mean, simple things like, well, when I start preparing the supplies I need for my children to have. I mean, all this stuff is published where people can, if they can't, they can call and go by and pick it up. Right. But when I start picking this stuff up, and what if I have problems with that? If there's an issue, is there somebody I can reach out to say, look, I'm just not going to be able to get that particular size pencil holder or whatever it may be? What do you recommend, and help them understand they're not alone in this process, and there's people there to help them? And we're going to get into a whole nother portion of this conversation later. It's going to basically flip this conversation upside down. But I want folks to understand that there is a window of opportunity. School's coming up the last here of August. This show is airing in August. We're giving them a real kind of health check. Don't wait to September 1st to get what you needed in August to go back to school.
I think to answer that question, I would just have to say that I'm just so thankful that we live in such a wonderful community. We have so many partners in this community that works with all students to ensure that they have, like you said, everything that they need. We have many organizations that buy us, Clinton City Schools, backpacks and donate backpacks of school supplies. Mm-hmm. And so if there are needs, if there are genuine needs that you can't provide your child, we're not going to let them attend Clinton City Schools without like you said, the proper utensils is probably a good word. I mean, you got to have paper, you got to have pencils. One of the things we've been able to do here recently is move a lot of our stuff to digital. Now, let me say, I don't think that digital is the 100% best way to teach. Mm-hmm. I still like a lot of direct instruction with our teachers are up at not a chalkboard anymore, right, but the whiteboard, and we're providing instruction to students. You mentioned some of the expectations. Mm-hmm. I like thinking about expectations for like the bus, because a lot of what we're trying to do is keep your child safe. Mm-hmm. So when you think about an expectation on the bus, no, we don't want the kid up and running down the aisle. Mm-hmm. It's not that we're trying to be mean to the child or mean-spirited. If the bus driver needs to make a sudden stop, we don't want that child to fly to the front. Safety issues. Mm-hmm. Same thing. We want, when a student comes into school, we want them to be ready to learn. Mm-hmm. What does ready to learn look like? Well, they're going to be focused on the task at hand. They're going to be hopefully well fed. One of the great things that we have here in Clinton City Schools is that we are a CEP school. Mm-hmm. So that means every child in our school system receives free lunch and free breakfast. One of the things that we're trying to do for this next school year is to have what we call a second chance breakfast option. Mm-hmm. So our kids would actually have the opportunity to eat breakfast in the morning and then after first period. Because some people are not like, they come to school like they get out of the bed, wash their face and come straight to school, and they may not be ready to eat. Mm-hmm. So we would have hopefully an option after first period, or maybe, not that all schools have periods, but maybe 9:30, there would be a second opportunity to eat, so that we can ensure that our kids get opportunities to be fed. We've looked at after school and after snack programs. So we're trying to ensure that our kids have that we want them to have their minds ready and sharp, which starts with proper nutrition, I believe.
And that particular aspect of it, again, for folks that's viewing or listening, is that there's opportunities there, and they should not hesitate to reach out to, whether it's a middle school, high school, whatever it may be, and just ask for direction. You've got and I know a lot of them, I guess because I'm saying this, but you got a lot of wonderful teachers, a lot of school superintendents, principals, and counselors. They're there for that purpose, to make sure if there's something that can be done, they'll make it happen.
again, we're talking about the same thing, Mr. JW, but again, I just have to, again, say community support. I mean, we have backpack programs. Here last year, we started the Dark Horse Pantry at our high school. This coming school year, we're going to have a Dark Horse Pantry starting at Sampson Middle School, where we actually allow students with food security needs to go through this pantry, basically, that's provided by, again, many community supporters. I don't want to say any names because I'll leave somebody out. But they're able to pick up food that they need for the evenings or the weekends. And so, again, that's so important, because if we don't meet, just think about like Maslow, you know, if we don't meet their physical needs, we're definitely not going to meet their educational needs.
Absolutely.
And so, but as you said, guidance counselor, teachers, if you have needs, you have to let us know, and we'll be sure to meet those needs with you.
What's transportation looking like for school systems? We've come to know that big orange or yellow bus. We've come to know that. We're looking at a generation now that's transcending, by some people's terms, by 2030, which is only 8 years out, of being a carbon neutral world. School buses are going to be electric. Some of them already are. We're looking at other forms of transportation. What do you see visionary-wise with transportation, and what should we expect?
Well, that's a great question. We don't have any electric school buses in Sampson County that I'm aware of. A lot of people don't know this. That's actually a good question. We have to, the way that the money comes down from the state, we are funded one transportation office for the county. So we work in partnership with Sampson County to provide buses and transportation for Clinton City, and then, of course, them for the county schools as well. We got about 30 buses overall that we work to transport our kids. There's a lot of sharing of buses in Clinton City schools that doesn't necessarily happen at the county school level, but we do a good job of ensuring that our kids get to the different locations that they need and that they get there successfully.
And some other, in fact, recently and last year, I made some notes where there were school systems, not here, but in certain parts of the state, that literally lost kids. And in the sense they actually didn't lose the child, it just ended up at the place that the child was not planning to go. We'll kind of touch on that when we come back. And then I want to kind of do a flip side of what we were just talking about, which will bring on a whole nother discussion about the whole word expectation.
Gotcha.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Dr. Wesley Johnson. We're talking about school stuff, to include the most important part I think that we all can agree on is we're talking about the students in the schools, and not only how they're educated, but what you as a parent may expect of that child, and what the superintendent and his entire staff is working to ensure happens. And we read some of actually the vision statement for Clinton City Schools, which is a very dynamic movement statement. We want to make sure that we're covering here some of the things that you want to know about, and we're certainly talking to somebody that knows that. I want to encourage you to call a friend or family member, or you may even want your child to sit down and listen to the rest of the show if you haven't already got there. We'll be back in one moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. We're coming on our last segment today. I just want to again thank all the sponsors of this show over the years. Very soon we'll be coming up on our 12th year on the air. And it's amazing. But the folks with the radio station, Wayne Weeks and Robert Stroud with Boogie Shoes, and all the other folks that you hear every day and every week on the radio station mention the show, and I very much appreciate their effort. Nicole and Tommy Elliott and others. I thank you for listening and watching the show. I ask you to please continue your communication to weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. We will certainly try to follow up on that, and if it's a question, we'll try to get you the answer to that question. As we move forward, there's new programs coming up, constant change in our society, and as always, we try to bring you the people that are making the decisions, that are carrying out the protocols and the procedures, that are at the vortex of what's happening around in the area. And today is no exception to that. Dr. Wesley Johnson, Clinton City Schools. Dr. Johnson, again, thank you for being with us. And I think for a lot of folks that are in your position, that are public servants, thank you for allowing us to take the better part of your life as being a public service for this community.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I enjoy what I do. There's not a day that I wake up and I want to do something different. As we talked about, coming up on year 25, fortunately, I won't say unfortunately, fortunately, I have a third grader. So my youngest girl's in third grade, so I'm going to get to do this wonderful job for many more years. And I hope I can be able to do that right here in good old Clinton and Sampson County.
Well, on behalf of what I have heard from the community and from the citizens of Clinton, you've already got 2 thumbs up, so I'll add the third one to it. How about that?
Sounds great.
I want to kind of follow up on our last segment. We talked a lot about things that folks could receive from the school system, folks could get here and there. You know, and I'm sure you've probably heard, there's quite a few people that may step up and say, are we giving too much? Have we increased the expectation of the word free to the point that it is not beneficial for folks? It's the analogy that if something's always free, it may not be good. So is there some discussion there that being free is only good if it is for an actual situation that a person is in need? An example would be free lunches for everyone.
Right.
Then we moved in the pandemic, as you'll recall, we discovered there was a lot of folks that were food challenged in the pandemic that now I saw schools, and I'm sure Clinton may have been some of those schools where folks would drive through and get lunch, even though they couldn't come to school because they didn't have food. We're seeing that even more. Is there something going on here that needs to be discussed?
Those are good thoughts, and yes, absolutely. Clinton City Schools was one of the school systems that was able to provide meals. And again, I was saying was able because we had a lot of volunteers and a lot of people that were willing to give up time of their own to assist us with that. That's a good thought. You know, because with public education, well, for the most part, it is free. And we do try to provide, we talked about earlier in the last segment about transportation, free transportation for all. Irregardless if you could get your child to school or not, we still provide those for you. Like you said, free breakfast, free lunch. But what I would say is that in many contexts, that can change overnight, that you can go from being someone who may not be in need to something happened with your job, or maybe you got laid off, or maybe you had your spouse to pass away. Then that's totally, adjusted your financial well-being or your income. And so at any time or at any moment, I think at the snap of a finger, you can become someone who is food insecure or food challenged, or who may need transportation. So I would say that, for that question, that I think it just depends on the context and the situation, but we try to provide as many services as we can. Now, what I will say is that sometimes I feel that in public education that we're providing so many services that we actually miss out on the main context of public education, and that's to educate our citizenry. So that was why last year I felt like it was very important for that to be our theme. Keeping the main thing, because the main thing in education is reading, writing, arithmetic, and now probably social emotional health. And so we want to make sure that we're providing those in that context, and that needs to be the main focus of what we're doing here in Clinton City Schools.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because my third point here was mental health. One of the things that we've seen throughout the state, throughout the country, is the dynamic and what appears to be a great need for at least clinician level counseling, not what we refer to as counseling in the sense of deciding what class you're going to go to, but a clinical psychological counselor. Does Clinton City Schools have that? Does it need more clinical counselors for students? Is that something that it will be part of the evolution of education?
So now in North Carolina, DPI and our legislators are insistent that we hire a school psychologist. The problem with that, Mr. JW, is school psychologists aren't just sitting around with their hand raised, hey, I need a job.
They're not out there.
They're not out there. And so we have been allocated one position for years, and we've not been able to fund that. And now this year, I think we're allocated 2 or 2.5. So what we've had to do is find contracted services to reach out to clinical psychologists or counselors in our area. There happens to be an individual we've been working with, and he and his partner from the Beulahville area. But yeah, to answer that question, yes, we need more clinical counselors, individuals that can assist with the broader context of students with extreme social emotional needs. We kind of try to put everything into what's called a MTSS, multi-tiered support services. And so you can have like tier 1 would be the general population, and then tier 2 would be students who needs some services, with tier 3 would be like students that need the most services. And so our students that are in tier 3, they're provided the service from the clinical counselors like you mentioned. But yeah, I believe that there are contexts and situations where everybody needs that type of level of counseling.
When you look at that from a sense of prioritization, is that something that is realistic that we could put in that category like we have for rural areas, again, doctors, nurses, and others, to try to attract people to this area? Because again, we're looking at very high paid positions.
Right. One of the things that I think that a lot of school systems are doing, and we're actually trying to develop this with our Southeastern Education Alliance partners, the individual that's our executive director for the Southeast Education Alliance is a young lady by the name of Kathy Spencer. Kathy used to be the superintendent in Onslow, and she's got ties to many other superintendents. And so we're working to try to partner with Appalachian State. Kathy actually works for East Carolina as well, but trying to start a program for school psychologists, and where each LEA would be provided the opportunity to basically assist one of its counselors to go back to school really free of charge to get their degree in school psychology so that they could become a school psychologist within their own district. And we are starting that, just to go down that road right now. So it's just at the initial starting line. But I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to move someone forward to get their school psychologist degree and license so that they can be one here in Clinton City Schools.
I want to get some of these things in, if I can here. Advocacy group, Public Schools NC, I'm sure you're familiar with, is looking at somewhat in the terms, when you read a lot of their literature, that charter schools and other education, innovative schools, different kinds of education, school vouchers, is a threat to public education. Do you see that realistically something that's going to be a challenge to publicly held education versus folks saying, hey, I'm just giving up here, I'm going to send my child to Harold's Christian Academy or Mintz or somewhere else?
So the whole idea of school choice has been around for quite some time.
Yes.
And I think that in a sense, in certain situations that there should be school choice. But I would tell you, as someone who's been a advocate for public education for 25 years and been a part of public education for 25 years, I can tell you that the public education system is strong and that we're doing many, many great things for many, many, many students. What I would advocate as a public education person is that public education is real world, that all students from all walks of life, from all demographics, from all backgrounds attend the public school. And so you are training your child for what real life is going to be like and what they're going to be dealing with when they get a real job and they're having to work with people from all different walks of life and all different demographics. So I believe public education to be the best because that's what I've been doing, and I just see it as more real world.
Yeah, and I think also it causes you to remember you're sitting beside of the people that you're going to be working with. You're not isolated. One of the things I want to try to get in before we get through today is one of the core values that really struck me as so critical today, and it's called all students and staff must hold each other accountable and be a positive role models. I mean, I think that just hones in so much on where we are and the need we have.
Well, you know, when we were thinking about that core value, again, we talked to a lot of people. You know, we want to make sure that we're educating students to be good citizens. Yes, we want them to be doctors and lawyers, and we want them to be great plumbers and great electricians. But if you're not a good citizen, and if you're not a good person for your community, and you don't know things about managing your checkbook or, you know, what it means to be a voter. We want to make sure that we're providing these students with all that they need to be positive role models within this own community. Yes, some of our students will leave Clinton, and some of our students may leave Sampson County and may never come back, but there's going to be many that remain in this district. And so it's our job, it's our role to ensure that we provide them with the context of being good citizens so that we can have a great community for many, many, many years to come.
And I think the idea too of role models is not somebody that is in a high position or somebody of great wealth. A role model could be your parent, your uncle, your aunt, your brother, your sister, somebody that you know, a church member. Is somebody that is expressing and carrying themselves in a very positive lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And I think it's what it said. I want to thank you for being with us today. Time always goes fast when you're here. We always leave this show with questions I still want to talk about it and conversations I still want to have. So just keep your phone near. I'll probably be buzzing you later.
All right, great.
Look forward to having you again. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us today. And I believe I can already hear the school bells ringing. So be sure you dial into that web page or find out what your child needs and make sure they have a wonderful start to the 2022 school year. We look forward to seeing you again right here, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.